So, because you all care so deeply much about my opinion, that's a joke by the way, I thought it would be fun to also make a top 10 GameCube games, and this one's definitely not cheating as much. It is a weird list though, so you're not going to see like any of the things you're anticipating on it, but that doesn't mean in any regards that I don't like the games I haven't listed. It's just like when I think of the first 10 GameCube games that stood out to me and are full of like happy memories and fun and stuff, these were the first 10 that I could think of. Like the N64 list, this will follow the rules of one per franchise, so that means only one Zelda, only one Metroid, only one James Bond, only one Pokemon, etc, etc. You guys get the picture. That's the way things are going to go with any list I do, because I think it's kind of cheating to put Zelda Collector's Edition, plus Wind Waker, plus Twilight Princess. Like, it shows that you don't really have much taste, so that's why I think it's important to narrow it down a lot deeper. Now, I'm still going to try and keep it short to about the 1 minute rule, so let's start it out with Luigi's Mansion. I do think it's a great game. I really like it because it's a huge departure. It's something totally new. It's like a different air. It's got a different feeling. It's got a lot of freshness added to it, and I liked it. It was also one of the first games I got for the GameCube, but I guess considering it came out with it, that was everybody's first. But it was just, it's really memorable. The only problem with the game was the idea that it was only 2-3 hours long. That's about it. If it weren't for the length, it would be a lot better, but everything in that game is still incredibly memorable and, again, fresh, new, exciting, cool. I like it. And this one's kind of cheating because it's related to Luigi. But another new little IP which I really like is Pikmin. I think it's a great game. I think it's a fun RTS. It's not too challenging. It's unique. I don't really have a lot I can go in depth on. The only real gripe I have with it is just the idea of, I mean, I guess if you want to count duration, but I think it's a decent length. Not too long, but could be a little bit longer if I wanted to. It's got a good narrative going with it, with the whole fight for survival thing. There's a lot of like freedom to do things in different ways or however you want over and over. There's a lot of replayability. There's a lot to learn. It's got depth is what I'm trying to say. It's a good game. I like it. Here's going to be one that's going to raise some eyebrows, but I don't even really care. It's my little thing. That's most of the reason why I wanted to do is because I knew mine was going to be drastically different from everyone else's. One of my favorite games was Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. I first technically played it on the PS2. It was my sister's copy, but she got me American Wasteland for Christmas later that year. And in my opinion, this was the pinnacle of Tony Hawk. This was its last hurrah. It hasn't been the same since. And since playing it, it makes all the original games look like shit and handle like shit. This is the perfect Tony Hawk game. It's got a great story mode, it's got a great classic mode. This is one of the few games that I've actually replayed on every single difficulty. I've done everything there is to do. I was hugely into it. I love the multiplayer. I love the skateboard creatability because you can do a lot of fun stuff with that. It's overall just a great game. It's full of copyrighted music that I can't share with you, but it still was really good and I liked it, and I think it was and still is the best Tony Hawk, period. Here we go with another third-party title. This one again, I also have like a lot of really fun memories and all that with Day of Reckoning. I think it's really funny when I hear people talk about modern wrestling games about how they should do this, they should do that, or how they're missing this and they're missing that, and then I'm like, hey, remember in 2004 when they made a game with all those features that you're talking about? So again, this is another one, and I think it's drastically underappreciated as well. People are busy talking on SmackDown vs. Raw. I've played those games. They're fucking garbage. Day of Reckoning is good. It handles like really cleanly. I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's got a lot of freedom to it. There was a fucking YouTube series dedicated to creating wrestlers, mostly started with Day of Reckoning, where, you could see Mr. Clean get in a fight with fucking Scorpion or something. That's a good sign. Obviously, it had a legacy because it kept going a few years after the game's release. It was a really good point for wrestling as well. I think it was a nice point in the Ruthless Aggression era, but it was just a lot of fun. One of my favorite features was to do the Hell in the Cell matches or to get in a fight with the referee, because the referee would actually fight back. That's not a feature they put in Day of Reckoning 2. It's really great to watch the referee come at you with a fucking chair with bloodlust in his eyes. Nothing tops that. It's hysterical. I'm not gonna lie, after like getting the soundtrack for this video, I kind of really want to start playing Metroid Prime again. I do really enjoy the game, and I'm a huge fan of the series, as little as that may be obvious by how many games I've LP'd by them. But I think Prime is a really good game, and I'm really kind of glad that if holding off the N64 game meant we got this, because I think it's an incredibly visually stunning game for 2002, and it transitioned like flawlessly. This was one of those games where people were worried, how's it going to transition from 2D to 3D, and it fucking did it seamlessly. Retro did a great job. I feel bad that they had to abandon all their projects in order to help us, but I still appreciate the gesture nonetheless. The soundtrack is great, everything about it is super immersive and super fun, and it's one of the few Metroid games that I've gotten anywhere close to 100%, because bluntly, I'm not the best at them, but I did find it a lot easier to play in the Prime games than I did in something like Zero or Fusion or Super. A lot of people give the GameCube games a lot of shit, in particular the Pokemon ones, but I honestly really liked them. It kinda got me into Gen 3. It was the first ever RPG-based Pokemon game I ever got to play. We didn't get shit until then. We didn't have original Game Boys or anything. We didn't get a Game Boy Advance till like 2003, and we didn't get Pokemon Fire Red till like 2006. Me and my brother were really behind the times, so getting Coliseum helped us out a lot. Especially, and I've said this over and over, and I will continue to praise it, it was a really good time to get Pokemon, because you had this, you had XD, you had the remakes, and you had the current gen games. Everything was falling into place. It was super easy to get everything you needed. It was incredibly fun. The Shadow thing, I honestly wouldn't even be bothered if they made a new game following the same formula. I wouldn't be bothered. I prefer Coliseum over XD because it just feels less frustrating to me, but at the same time it's also frustrating in its own merits. It's mostly because of the whole not as many shadows thing, but at the same time shadows were easier to purify in XD. I don't know, it's a constant battle, but I do feel like I favor Coliseum more. Maybe it's bias, I don't know, but this is a subjective list, so what are you gonna do? Hey, we're on to another RPG. Okay, so this is another gem that I'm grateful I got, because at the time I had just finished Paper Mario 1, and I was like, wow, that was a great game. And then my buddy Fabi was like, hey, what do you want for Christmas? Do you want Thousand Year Door? And I was like, yeah, totally. So he gave it to me, which I'm really grateful for, because the game sells for like 40 bucks, which makes it, I guess, worth a damn. But on top of that, it's also an incredibly good Paper Mario game. And I've always had issues choosing which my favorite was, because I feel like I like both 64 and Thousand Year Door together for different reasons. I still think they're both really good games, and I think they handle incredibly well on their own. But Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is probably one of the best GameCube games out there, and if you haven't played it, you're really missing out. Now this one people would probably put on their Wii list, but because I prefer the GameCube version was the original version, and I have the GameCube, and it's on the GameCube, I'm gonna give it to Twilight Princess, because I don't like Wind Waker much, really, at all. I can see the appeal of it, I can see some things that you can point out and say, that's a good quality, and I will agree with you, but if you're gonna give me the choice between the two, I'm gonna prefer Twilight Princess, because I find it easier to play, less annoying, less time-consuming, easier to get everything in, and just overall more interesting. So I'm gonna side with Twilight Princess. Wind Waker kind of has the Majora thing of little dungeons, a lot of side quests, while Twilight Princess is a nice balance. It's got a lot of stuff in there, but it's still got more dungeons than Wind Waker by almost double. I don't mind the visual style, I don't care about it, that's not a thing that bothers me. I just found it easier to get interested in, and I just overall liked it better. So, there you go. Alright, so most people are going to always be super passionate and say Resident Evil 4 is the best game ever, but 90% of those people have never played anything outside of Resident Evil 4. The first game I played was Resident Evil 1. I've also played 2, 3, Veronica, 4, so I'm pretty well versed. I do prefer the classic style as opposed to the action style, because I find the classic style a lot more immersive and engaging than the action style. I prefer it more. I'm not saying 4 is a bad game. Honestly, it's really hard for me to pick because I like all the Resident Evils, and I think they all stand out pretty good. I like 3. 3 is also really good, but nothing quite captured my attention or the replayability to the same degree that Resident Evil 1 has done. I've tried learning to speedrun 4, and I kind of gave up when I couldn't get certain glitches to work. But Resident Evil 1 doesn't even really require any glitches, it just requires skill. Just be good at the game. That's it. Guess what? I've played that game so many times it's not even funny. I bought the game and practiced it over and over again so I could learn how to LP it back when I used to have a camera. If that's not dedication to saying, hey, this game is good, I don't really know what is. You could also argue, you know, first choice or whatever, but I think it's better. I just like it. The only real thing I don't know if I have a thing that I can say I don't like about it other than the fact that your first time's going to be hard. But that's only if you're introduced to the series with it. If you've played like 2 or 3 and then go to 1, you might have an easier time. But as a first game, you're going to have a hard time because it's not the easiest game. But it's still a fucking great game. And by the way, it sure is a piece of shit that Resident Evil HD Remake, the GameCube game that's exclusive to GameCube, couldn't come out on a Nintendo console. By the way, let's see Ratchet & Clank HD on the Wii. Yeah, that's a good fucking idea, right? Shit on your demographic, Capcom, thanks. And again, this one shouldn't surprise anyone because, you know, they're always high up on my list, and again, I love the shit out of some James Bond. I think Nightfire's the best. I think it's a real shame people are so gung-ho about GoldenEye 64 to ever pick up and try and play a different James Bond games, because there's so many better ones out there than that. I can give you 4 off the top of my head. 5 even. But Nightfire is also, and still will always be, my favorite in general, mostly because the multiplayer, like, I said this in my top James Bond, and there's so much replayability, there's so much fun, there's so much features, there's so much everything that matters to be included in there, and it's a solid first-person shooter. The only real downside, I guess you could argue, is the fact that it's short, or the fact that there's a few too many vehicle-based levels, but that never deterred me. It always felt charming, it always looked nice, it always felt like a nice labor of love and a great send-off. I don't think that they can... I want them to top this, but they haven't yet, and it's a shame because it's a fucking great game. Now, just because I do think it's probably worth mentioning, Mario Kart Double Dash is shit. I prefer Deception over Deadly Alliance. I don't hate Sunshine, I think it's okay, it's just terrible if you're going for 100%. I don't mind Melee, I just kind of think that once a new Smash game comes out, the old ones become worthless. I know that that's obviously not the popular opinion, but that's the reason I didn't include Melee or Smash 64 on there, is because, yeah, it was fun at the time, but the second a new one comes out, there's no reason to care anymore. At least Brawl and Smash 4 kind of give you a sort of longevity to it. But that was my top. I thought it was different from most people's. I think it's... I mean, I like my top. I like those games. But you can go ahead and tell me what you like, what your opinions are. There's a lot of other good GameCube games out there. But again, it's all just an opinion, so you have fun, do your thing. See you guys later.